I don't think anybody really wanted to wake up that morning.
We're coming up to the stadium for our last game.
Yeah.
Cleveland Stadium. It's at December what? 17th, huh?
Yeah, December 17th.
1995.
It was one of those days where you're kind of numb all day long.
It felt like a war zone. It felt like you were in war-torn Eastern Europe or somewhere.
It was really eerie walking in there and knowing this was it. You're going to watch your football team for the last time.
Programs! Cleveland Browns Final Edition programs!
It was like going to a funeral.
Funeral, yeah.
Going to a funeral.
I got there very early that day. You could see people with ladders, saws, and hammers.
26 years season ticket holder. I'm going to cut my seat out. You got it, man. Go Browns.
I told my wife not to come to that game, because we didn't know what was going to happen.
The cherry bomb goes off in the end zone.
I remember one point in time hearing this noise. It was just very foreign to a football stadium, not understanding what it was. And then when you looked in the stands, what they were doing is they were literally pulling out rows of the bleacher seats. Large groups of people just heaving stuff out onto the field, like rows of benches.
When you started seeing those bleachers being thrown onto the field, it sure felt like it was the end.
The city of Cleveland will never forget December 17th, 1995. Nor will the man who coached his final home game in Cleveland that afternoon.
I personally never felt threatened, but it was certainly not like a normal home game. There's never been a game like that before.
Bill Belichick's tenure in Cleveland ended painfully. But what happened during his 5 years there would reverberate across the football world for a generation.
You're going to be a football player when you go away.
Today is the best day of your life. Believe it.
He might be the finest quarterback produced in the last 10 years.
He's someday like that. That's all I need.
Fortunately for me, I didn't lose my life. Didn't lose my job.
Football convinced me that life is a team game.
Rest of your life, nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to introduce to you the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns, Bill Belichick.
Thank you, Art. It gives me a great deal of pride and pleasure to now be a member of the organization. This is certainly one of the outstanding franchises in the National Football League, and I'm tremendously proud to be here.
At age 38, Bill Belichick became the youngest head coach in the NFL.
Run whatever you need to run to get there, because they ain't going to beat us running the ball.
His credentials were impeccable, and he was universally viewed as one of the top young minds in football.
Bill came from the New York Giants. They had just won the Super Bowl. And he came in and he had a binder. He had a plan. And he laid it out and he showed Art Modell. He said, look, this is how you win championships. This is the formula for it. These are the number of players you need at this age group. And this age group has to be very good, and that has to include Pro Bowl players. So Art was fascinated with Bill's study of the game up to that point and how he had a plan, not just a hope, to win.
The Browns needed a new plan. They were one of the NFL's bedrock franchises, founded and built by the legendary Paul Brown, led to championships by all-time greats Otto Graham and Jim Brown. They had made it to the playoffs 7 times in the 1980s, but failed to reach the Super Bowl, instead accumulating a string of defeats remembered for singular heartbreaking moments. Red Right 88, the drive, the fumble.
Ryder inside the 5 to the 4 to the 3 to the 2. He's almost a football with the Broncos have it.
The year before Belichick's arrival, the team bottomed out with a record of 3-13.
The day he took over, you could just tell that he was in complete control. You know, I can remember being in my office. He wanted a write-up of every single player, but not how I would write it up, how he wanted it written up.
Before we get into all the X's and O's, we go through each player, strengths, weaknesses, overall his physical abilities, what his history is, speed, all that.
He's probably the only one who's playing as consistent as any of the veteran guys in the line. I'm not sure this guy's got enough arm strength left to play. Can't run. Really built like a corner, but has to play safety.
Casey, that's a typical report right there. Everybody on their team stinks. Nobody has any athletic ability. So, unless the coaches this game up, then there's no way we could lose.
He was meticulous, he was organized, and you could just instantly tell that he had an idea about how he was going to run the organization in terms of build the team, the foundation for the organization moving forward.
One piece of that foundation would be the Browns' best player of the 80s, tight end Ozzie Newsome.
The first time I had a chance to talk to Bill, the first time I want you to still play. But at that point, I had moved on. I said, I don't want to play. I want to learn how to do it.
He was definitely a guy that I wanted to have in some capacity.
Bill had me on the field coaching. I was on the road scouting. I was doing advanced. They took this little birdie and they kicked him out of the nest right away.
Is this a big nickel team?
They play some nickel. They do play some nickel.
Newsome became one cog in the vast array of talent Belichick was assembling throughout the Browns organization. Cleveland's staff during Belichick's years included 9 future NFL head coaches or general managers, and 3 who became successful head coaches at major college programs.
We were all committed. I mean, we had a great group of people there, and we were all committed to trying to sort of bring that franchise back.
I mean, if we don't play our ass off, they'll beat us.
Oh, I agree. And I think we got to do everything we can to get our team to the highest level we can this week. Pull out all stops, whatever they are.
And I tell you what, we may not have had a very good plan, but we had a horse preparation for this game the last time we played these guys.
No question.
One step at a time, Belichick began to execute the plan he brought to Cleveland.
Come on, we got to move the line of scrimmage. We got to knock them off the line.
We wanted a tough, hard-nosed, blue-collar football team, and that's what Cleveland is, and that's what we wanted our football team to be. Mike Lombardi and Ozzie and I would sit down and Nick Saban and talk about our team. We tried to build it that way. And working for Art and the Browns was just such a proud franchise. There's so much tradition to it that I just want to keep it up and keep it going and provide for my family and the people who are counting on me.
From the day I was born, I've been around football. My dad gets a job in the mid-'80s to join the Cleveland Browns in a scouting capacity. I was a Browns fan through and through.
Well.
Brother!
Thomas had been working in the World League.
You are moving up here. I mean, this is no more 5 people in an apartment, right?
The World League collapsed. So Thomas was out of work. He moved back to Strongsville, Ohio to live with his mom and dad and was looking for anything to do.
My dad gives me a call and said, why don't you come back to Cleveland and, hang out around the facility and do whatever you can do. So I get that job with the grounds crew. I'm in the
I remember.
Yeah, you remember.
He'd come back stinking from sweat, paint on different parts of his body, from the knees down, everything was green.
I would be out there doing my work during the days, and in the evenings I would jump up to the office and continue to work on my scouting prowess. The funniest thing was that group down there, they thought I was lying through my teeth. Are you kidding me? What do you mean you're scouting? You're going to go from grounds crew to scouting in the NFL? Yeah, right, buddy. Okay, yeah. Tell me about it.
Like Thomas Dimitroff, the boss in Cleveland knew a thing or two about meager beginnings. Bill Belichick broke into the league in 1975 as a gopher with Ted Marchibroda's Colts.
I just, really wanted to be part of the team, wanted to contribute. Money wasn't that important. I didn't get in football for the money. I got in it because of the love of the game. I was always kind of the low man on the totem pole. Ran the Xerox machine. I mean, half the people, don't even know what a Xerox machine is now, but, they cranked the Xerox machine and did some of that and, ran off a lot of stuff, went to the airport, picked up film.
He had been through it, so, guys that were willing to do that, he respected knowing that he went through the same thing.
Belichick filled out his staff by hiring a stable of young and hungry 20-somethings with little experience.
What was Bill looking for in people? Bill was looking for Bill. And he found a lot of little Bills.
It wasn't even really an interview. He got there and he offered me the job. Here's the deal. I'm offering you a job. I don't know what the title is. I don't know what the role is. I'm not sure what the duties are, but I'm offering you a job. Are you in?
Yeah, there wasn't really a lot of negotiation. We didn't pay much, and we had long hours and a lot of work.
And then he says to me, he said, the one thing I do know is the salary. I said, yeah. He goes, I could pay you $14,000. And I looked at him, he goes, you still want the job? I said, absolutely.
I don't think Scott had a lot of leverage on that one.
I thanked him. He says, well, you know what? Thank me by doing a good job.
Yeah, but I'm talking about we need to see the Bear game, though. I think we need to show them the game.
The one thing about Bill, he's going to define that role and responsibility for you, and then you're going to go have at it. So all these guys were really, really busy.
We try not to make a lot of promises at the beginning and, let them earn their stripes and work their way up the ladder based on what they do.
When you're in the player personnel department and you're at the bottom, you're just doing things, whatever has to get done.
Whether it be making copies.
Copies, a lot of copies.
Or running a guy to the airport.
There was more than a few times that I got sent out for cigarettes for secretaries or for assistant coaches.
Taking cars to get, oil changes or, things like that at all hours of the day.
Doing grunt work like that was part of why we were there.
It's a proverbial mailroom. It just, for me, was equipment. For Pioli, it was operations. For Tommy, it was grounds crew. Everybody had to pay their dues.
We had a house in Cleveland that had a pond, and one side of the pond needed to be landscaped. So I got George Kokinas and Phil Savage and Schwartzy, and these guys were all young guys right out of college. Great labor, so, and cheap.
I want to say we were called scouting assistants at the time. Everyone referred to us as slappies. We all know what that's short for.
There's Ozzie Newsome and Kirk Ferentz, two slappies. Happy slappies.
Scott likes to refer to us as slappies. I'm a little bit more semantically responsible than Scott. I like to say that we were neophytes in the business, and we were trying to learn and trying to grow, trying to learn as much as we could.
What they learned was how to stretch a dollar.
We lived in this place. It was awful.
It was literally at the end of the airport runway.
It felt like the plane was going to land on your house.
It made it easy to go to work because we had such a crappy apartment.
When Mangini moved in, he wanted cable.
Say, Scott, what do you think about possibly getting cable? He didn't want to even entertain it.
We didn't have money to go out and buy a sandwich, for crying out loud, and they wanted to get cable.
His whole philosophy was, we're never here, we're always at the building, we don't need cable, we don't need heat, we don't need air conditioning, we don't need food.
Most meals came from the Berea practice facility. Even that perk came with a risk.
Just got that first bite, and all of a sudden Coach Belichick walked in. Sort of looks at me and goes, have you seen the turkey? Well, I just used the last of the turkey, and it was in my mouth. And I'm like, well, I just used the last of it, Coach. And, he sort of muttered something under his breath and then walked out. And here I'm sitting there going, geez, I've been on the job for 3 days, and I just ate the last of the head coach's food. I might not be making a return trip to Cleveland. I made sure that I ate salami or ham after that.
You just knew there was nobody working harder, more committed to the success of the team than him.
I still got another 6 hours of Chicago, 5 hours of Chicago. Although I spent about
3 hours on Cincinnati last night, so I'm in pretty good shape on them.
He would set the tone in terms of his work ethic, his approach, his intensity, his intelligence for everybody else in the organization.
Bill Belichick was always multitasking. He was always working. He was always on the exercise bike, watching film, and eating at the same time. I mean, he was always working.
So that situation in the game really pissed me off. eight guys out there.
All right. You know, he didn't like people that just shot from the hip.
So
9, right, 9.
8.
You better have all your information. You had to better be very thorough with it because he already has did his homework.
Do what we tell you to do and try to do it a little bit better.
You know, Bill calls me in one day. He goes, "Hey, what you're doing on these breakdowns, this is not what we want."
I've broken down plenty of defensive film, and I've done his job, and, you know, here's how I did it. Not saying that was great, but, you know, here's how I want it done.
So he puts a play up. 20 minutes later, he's on the same play, talking about splits, the wide receiver splits in relation to the hash marks and the numbers, the offensive line splits, their stances, the quarterback's cadence, his head movement going back and forth. It's 20 minutes on one play. I'll never sleep again.
I think there was such a sense of purpose in the work that we did that I don't think anybody really questioned it that much.
All the time and energy did not translate into wins. The Belichick era began with 3 losing seasons and the PR nightmare caused by the release of local icon Bernie Kosar.
I think Belichick should have been cut. I am totally aggravated. Bernie deserves much better than the way he's been treated.
But in year 4, things turned.
We had a rebuilding project that we had to go through, and everybody worked hard and was really committed to trying to get it right. And finally, in '94, we had a pretty good team.
Listen up now, on the game balls. Okay, Big Art's gonna have to write out a check on this one. Everybody gets one. This is a team victory.
Won 11 games, won a playoff game.
He cuts it 5. Touchdown, Brown!
We beat the Patriots, and, you know, that was Bill against Bill Parcells. You know, this pupil beats the mentor.
We all felt like we were building something and starting to you know, formulate a little bit of an identity.
I thought we would be good for a long time.
I'm real proud of our football team. I thought we went out there and played hard for 60 minutes, made a lot of big plays in the game.
There was that sense of we had turned the corner. All that time, all that work, all that effort, we were poised to make the next jump.
We had a good mix of veteran players and young players. We had drafted well. Everybody there thought that it was just the beginning.
Maybe they are ready to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, they've been singing Super Bowl along the banks of Lake Erie.
That was the year where I thought, you know, we could go as far as we wanted.
Both the Sporting News and Sports Illustrated picked the Browns to go to the Super Bowl.
I need a ring. I need a ring bad.
A city that was once the butt of late-night jokes was standing proud. The Browns won 3 of their first 4 games, and the baseball team in town was in the World Series for the first time in 40 years.
We got the Indians in the World Series. Our football team keep playing like there's a possibility that we could have our football team in the Super Bowl. The city of Cleveland was looking pretty good.
I know a lot of people picked us to go to the Super Bowl this year, and that put a lot of pressure on this team. We just try to get better week to week and don't worry about that. See what happens at the end of the season. Hopefully we'll be there then.
This town was going crazy because you got your football team and your baseball team. We were really at the top of the sports world. It was a good time to be a Cleveland sports fan. It really was.
You could feel that energy when you walk outside in Cleveland.
#1 Browns, baby! #1!
You could see that good times were ahead,
Damn, feel good to be winning, boy.
and it all fell apart.
I got called in the Art's office after Friday practice, and he told us he was moving the football team, that we would continue to play the remainder of the season, in Cleveland, but that the following year that the franchise was moving to Baltimore. He looked at me, he said, we've been together for a lot of years. And I go, yes, sir. He said, I'm moving this team and I'm moving it for one reason. And that's what he said, to win a championship. And I remember driving home. I lived probably 30 or 35 minutes from the practice facility. That drive seemed like it lasted 3.5 or 4 hours. You know, you're thinking about Red Right 88, the drive, the FOMO. So I got all of those emotions going through me as I'm driving home. And I get home and I tell my wife, we're moving to Baltimore.
I got very emotional about it, and I just felt that in the big picture, what was happening to the team was just very unfair.
Mr. Modell met the team in the team room and announced that the announcement would be made that the Cleveland Browns were going to be moving to Baltimore.
It was like getting punched in the stomach.
You could actually hear a pin drop.
We were shocked. We were saying, what? The Cleveland Browns can't move?
And he said, look, you know, you guys have to finish the season. We have to finish strong. We have a chance to do something this year, so let's do it. Let's focus on that.
And after you know, when he walked out, I mean, everybody was kind of just really, really stunned.
It was like, okay, you know, now what?
The first place Browns took the field less than 48 hours later. By then, news of the move had spread.
It just all comes down to money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's absolute money. At this point, just simply refurbishing the stadium is not going to be enough to keep Art Modell and his debts in Cleveland.
We tried to focus on our job and control the things that we could control. I mean, there were a lot of other things that were piling up on the outside, and there weren't many answers to the questions that everybody had.
It really shook our world. Our emotions just went stale.
It was like the world came to an end when we showed up to play the Oilers on that Sunday.
It's hard enough with no distractions to win in this league, and when you got a distraction like that trying to win, you got no chance. You got no chance.
Coming into today, remember, this team was tied for first place, so this news has thrown a hand grenade into their season. It might be better for this team to play on the road right now, Bob.
And that'll do it. Final score, Oilers 37, Browns 10 is the few remaining. Boo the Browns as they head to the locker room.
After the game, I can remember Bill and I got in the car and we drove out to Art's house. And the house was filled with wardrobe boxes. And it was the reality of the moment. After we met with Art, we just came back and said, this is going to be really hard. I don't think any of us knew the magnitude of what was ahead the next 7 weeks.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a signed contract in hand. The Browns are indeed coming to Baltimore.
It was official. When the 1995 season was over, the Browns were leaving town. And when the announcement was made, all hell broke loose in Cleveland.
All of Cleveland tonight is wondering what, if anything, can now be done to keep the Browns the Cleveland Browns.
We are in the 11th hour of the Browns crisis, and we're bringing you the very latest. An enraged Cleveland Browns fan lighting fire to all of his Browns souvenirs.
In my living room, everything is Cleveland Browns. And how can I keep it up? It's not a part of Cleveland anymore. The heart and soul has been taken out of this town.
It felt like the football world was crumbling around all of us there that were working. Bill was getting death threats. Art Modell was getting death threats.
When guys came to work, they had to ride through a picket line. We would leave the building 2 or 3 times a day because of a bomb threat.
Life-size dummies of Browns owners Art and David Modell and Coach Bill Belichick were hung in effigy at high noon.
I felt bad for, the team and the players and the coaches that were working so hard with less than no support. The owner was nowhere to be found. He was in Baltimore. Kind of felt like you're on a deserted island, fending for yourself.
He had searched around in all 4 sports, hockey, baseball, football, basketball, to where a franchise had moved during the season. So he needed somebody that he could talk to and know how to handle it. There was none.
Clearly, everybody's going to have to block some things out, but that's why we're professional coaches and players. We get paid to do that, and that's what we need to do.
It's in the newspaper 24/7. It's on the news 24/7. We started to feel the effects.
And how are you doing? How are you feeling as a player with this announcement?
I think unsettled, probably more than anything.
Do you own a house or a condo here, Leroy?
A condo. Yeah.
A lot of houses and condos are going to go on the market at the same time.
You got to remember, again, with pro football players, or it's the same thing with junior high players. If their personal lives are being rocked, it's going to affect the way they are in the room, in the meeting room, and also on the field.
Need to run on out of here. Thanks.
I'll be the first to say it. I think some players just stopped playing. I think some players quit on us.
We had a road game in San Diego, and because of the chaos, Bill had made the suggestion to Art that it would be a great idea maybe if we went out there a week early. And we went out there and we practiced all week at San Diego State. We had an unbelievable week of practice. The energy felt like, okay, this is going to be the week we're going to turn things around. And the opening kickoff, Ernest Hunter fumbles the opening kickoff. And just watching the entire sideline, just like, whew.
At the start of the 1995 season, the Browns had been picked by many to appear in their first Super Bowl. A week before Christmas, they were a 4-10 football team, losers of 6 straight games, preparing to host the final game at Cleveland Municipal Stadium.
The atmosphere here is very quiet, very somber. In reality, it is more like a family funeral.
We were like pinching each other almost, like, is this really happening? It's the Cleveland Browns. It's like one of the teams that built this league. I still thought that something, was going to come in and save us and keep us there.
Once we got to the stadium, we realized what we wanted to do was try our best to win the football game and give our fans some happiness. One last time.
Take it back to where it used to be. One last time. Let's go, Strike Force.
The team pulled together, rallied together.
The home team played inspired football. Despite the uncertainty of what the imminent end of Browns football might inspire.
Rose, end zone, McCardle, touchdown, Cleveland Browns.
Are the fans going to burn the stadium down? Are they going to boo us the whole game? No one knew.
I remember saying, somebody's going to rip the wrong bolt out of this thing, and this whole place is going to come falling apart.
The officials had to stop the game, and when we got to the 50-yard line, the teams would have to switch sides so no one was driving towards the dog pound.
Due to some of the debris and things that were being thrown out on the field, the officials have flip-flopped it.
When the game ended and we won, they turned and they were going to go say goodbye to the dog pound. It wasn't planned, it was spontaneous, and it kind of calmed everybody.
Dana Hall and several more members of the team. Steve
Pretty
Evers,
much all of them going down that way.
Ernest Biner.
I was saying thank you to the people that have been a part of a lot of joy, a lot of good times, a lot of difficult times, and remain supportive of something that they really love.
I will never forget standing right down there on the field and looking around and just thinking, it's over and this is horrible. What made me cry was Steve Everett getting grabbed by fans from the dog pound, and they wouldn't let him go.
People wanted just pieces of tape, sweaty, bloody pieces of jersey. I mean, people just wanted something to like hold on to, and I mean, I can remember losing it.
And I remember walking out to about the 20 or 30 and just feeling all of that sadness. And I looked to my right, and there was Kevin Burns.
For some reason, we kind of magnetized to each other, and we were standing there together, taking this all in like, holy cow. Who would have ever thought?
And the Ravens are the champions of the world.
Just 5 years after leaving Cleveland, the former Browns won a Super Bowl. Added to the list for a jilted fan base.
The people of Cleveland probably at that point in time would rather have seen the Steelers win another Super Bowl than the Ravens.
It was the worst case scenario. Cleveland has waited so long for a Super Bowl.
Look, you've done me proud, and I'll never forget it. I thank you.
The football gods, I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, it was absolutely cruel to give a Super Bowl to the Baltimore Ravens when those should have been the Cleveland Browns.
When the Browns left town, they left their head coach. Bill Belichick was fired in February, and Mike Lombardi stepped down a week later. But a large group of slappies made the move. Phil Savage, Scott Pioli, Eric Mangini, and Jim Schwartz all exchanged brown for purple. But most stinging for Browns fans was the architect of the Ravens Super Bowl, Cleveland's former favorite son.
World champ. How about that, baby?
How you doing?
Hey, that's all right. Worth the wait.
I think it's incredibly sad that Ozzie Newsome wasn't able to do that for the Cleveland Browns, because that's the way that it should be.
Thanks, man. Give me a hug, man. Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Thanks.
5 years prior to winning the Super Bowl, Ozzie Newsome was a first-time GM in his first draft. He used the lessons he had learned in Cleveland to lay the groundwork for an eventual championship.
I remember being in the draft room that year, and Ozzie talking to Art about Jonathan Ogden.
Ozzie was feeling a lot of pressure from Mr. Modell because it looked like Lawrence Phillips was going to be there. He was one of the top backs, but we all know that Lawrence had a lot of issues.
When it came time to pick, Jonathan was still there, and he was the best player on the board. And learning from Bill, stick with the board. That's Art, we're going to take Jonathan. Art goes, we need a running back. I said, but the best guy on the board is Jonathan Ogden.
Jonathan, Ozzie Newsome, how you doing? You ready to become a Raven?
Those are still tumultuous times now. I mean, we had just moved the franchise in March, and a month later we're having the draft. If he takes Lawrence Phillips in 1996 instead of Jonathan Ogden, they certainly don't have Super Bowl rings. His whole career could have been riding on that decision.
The Ravens had another first-round pick, one they had obtained a year earlier when they were still the Browns.
Ray, R-A-Y-F, Lewis,
Ray, hello.
L-E-W-I-S.
Let me transfer this to another line.
From Miami.
We traded away the pick the year before, which ended up giving them that pick. And we'd done a lot of work on Ray Lewis.
I was going with the cue card.
The Ray Lewis pick was really pretty much done before the plane ever left to go to Baltimore with the team.
You'll be going on our defense, competing with the linebackers we have. We only have 4 on the roster right now. Okay? All right, here's the honor. Ray Lewis.
Hi, Ray. Welcome to Doc Modell. Welcome to the Baltimore Ravens.
Our whole approach to scouting, we tweaked a few things, but the guts of it was built in those offices in Berea.
that program that Bill had run, Ozzie had picked it up and, taken a little bit of his own direction, but a lot of what we did and the way we did things continued on.
When I won in 2000, I owe a lot of that to Bill Belichick.
After being fired following the '95 season, Belichick joined Bill Parcells in New England as the defensive backs coach. 4 years later, he was the head coach, and he turned to the relationships he had built in Cleveland to help finish the job in Foxborough.
Some of the Cleveland connections carried over. People that I brought with me, which was a lot different than when I went to Cleveland, and those people were very beneficial.
Let's go. When we get to New England, we spent a lot of time talking about what was good in Cleveland, what was bad in Cleveland, what went wrong in Cleveland.
Let's take a look for another defensive lineman, too.
We kept the core of a lot of the philosophical things. There was a lot of learning from the Cleveland experience.
Working with essentially the same blueprint and having the opportunity to see it through, Belichick carried out the plan he had hoped to execute in Cleveland.
The Patriots are Super Bowl champions!
What we're trying to do is win, okay? That's what we're trying to do. So every play that's called, every decision that's made, everything that we do, whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, is made with the intent to win.
He hadn't changed at all. The success that he had in New England winning Super Bowls, he's not doing anything any different than he did in Cleveland.
Obviously, fellas, I don't think, we really got to go into this too much, but we got to win this game. It's as simple as that.
The Cleveland experience taught me that there are things that affect the team on the field that happen off the field. As a coach, you're kind of always looking at players and schemes and X's and O's, but there are some outside things that can affect both an individual and a team.
And if anybody asks you about it, which I'm sure you're going to get asked about it, whether it's by another player or the press or whatever, all we're doing is getting ready for Cincinnati.
I think I monitor those and keep track of those a little bit better than I did in Cleveland.
He was getting ready to do that here. That's how it was supposed to happen before the Cleveland Browns left town. Bill Belichick was supposed to lead this team to the promised land. And I think that when he went off and did that for the New England Patriots, I think it showed, look, he was on to something here. He was on the right track.
On the eve of the 2012 season, Art Modell passed away at the age of 87. At the same time, a new ownership group prepared to take control of the Cleveland Browns in their 14th season since being reborn in 1999. Across the NFL, a flock of former Browns continued to spread its wings.
It's unbelievable. Nice coverage.
Just trying to...
Sharp as a marble.
No, I'm just trying to keep up with you. But I can't believe you were making fun of my cufflinks the other day, so... You have cufflinks on today? Oh, you do? See?
I'm coming.
I got you.
I think I could walk into 5 or 6 NFL teams today that I could go in and read the grading system and pretty much identify that, I know where that started.
4 members of Bill Belichick's Cleveland staff are current NFL general managers. And Jim Schwartz is the head coach of the Detroit Lions.
Are you kidding me? Back in the huddle.
Good morning.
All have guided their teams to the playoffs within the past 2 seasons.
Those years in Cleveland, those teams, those people, that whole space and time impacted the NFL. It impacted a lot of football. And I don't mean to say I don't mean to sound self-serving anyway. It impacted the game a lot. I mean, Nick Saban has won national championships with 2 different teams. Kirk Ferentz, what he's done.
It was probably the place that I may have worked the hardest, but learned the most. It was one of the best experiences of my coaching career.
That's the key card to the original 1991 to 95 Browns.
That's what got you in the building in Berea. A number of us kept that key card, and when we see each other at the Combine or the Senior Bowl or a place like that, we'll say, remember those days.
Do you remember these guys? They were just assistants there. They were just like quality control guys. We come out to practice, and they hold up the cue cards for the scout team. And then the next thing you know, you look up, and these guys are head coaches. And then you stop and you think about it, and you say to yourself, Belichick must have been one hell of a teacher.
We just got to be attentive, attention to detail, good week of preparation, get everybody physically ready to go, and then be ready to go.
When he talks to the coaching staff Saturday night before the games, I reflect back on those meetings and my time there, and I think they're the most productive learning experiences of my life.
When you look back, you don't remember the hard times. You remember, what you got out of it. But the reason people got stuff out of it was because of Bill Belichick and the standard that he set.
It's a standard that helped them endure one of the most difficult seasons in NFL history.
I don't think anybody understood that this is as bad as it can be. It's probably been easier for them to survive in the business because of that year.
What could we face that was going to be any tougher than what we had already faced?
And when guys say, hey, this is hard, or I can't believe we have to deal with that, it's like, okay, this may seem hard, but comparatively.
Every day that I walk into this building with the Jets, I never, ever take it for granted because I've seen it, go so quickly.
Some people could look at it from the outside and say, geez, what a tough period to be there. I look at it and say, how fortunate was I? I met so many great people that were there.
There's a kinship because of what we went through there.
When two old friends from Cleveland became general managers, the first big deal they made was with each other, trading all-pro tight end Tony Gonzalez from Kansas City to Atlanta.
Good. I like what you done with the place, huh? It's unbelievable. I want to go look around.
It's very tough in this league to get a deal done if you don't respect the person you're dealing with.
And trust.
And trust.
One of the things I learned along the way in my time in Cleveland and other places, when you're dealing with icons, you better be careful, and you better do the right thing, and you better be transparent and honest and all of those things. The bottom line is, when you strip away this ugly jacket that he made me wear today, we're still Slappies at heart. And that's the cool part. We have never deviated in our relationship.
The city they left behind is still waiting for a winner. Cleveland successfully fought to keep its team's name and identity. But the Browns have not won a playoff game since Bill Belichick left.
You wonder, what if everybody had stayed there?
No doubt, we would have won a Super Bowl. We were too talented, we were too committed, and we were all on the same page.
We got better every year. Our program improved every year. I wish that it would have turned out a little bit differently, but we tried to do what we could and the best that we could for ourselves, for the team, and for the city of Cleveland. I have no regrets about that.